My name's Jason Ward and I'm an exploration geologist. 21 years ago, I had the great honour and fortune to get a job in Argentina. It was a month-on, month-off job, but after the first month I said to the boss, I'll see you here in a month, I'll stay. I booked into a Spanish school and I stayed. And so for 20 years I've been based in Argentina, sometimes working elsewhere in the world. And Argentina's a geological wonderland. Not only does it have fantastic geology, but it's all exposed. So driving along the roads, it is pretty distracting for a geologist. I went off to work in other countries, ended up in Ecuador, where we found some tier 1 deposits with soul gold. But I always felt that I had unfinished business in Argentina. So in 2016, I founded Condor Prospecting, and we put together a fantastic team led by Arturo Guardiola, who's here today. And there's some of our team, Janina, our environmental scientist, consultant, Dr. Steve Garwin, who helps us out over there, and the mules, of course, which are important because not only for transport, but they're often our first chance to engage with the local communities. So Chile, everyone knows, is the world's biggest copper producer. You can see most of these deposits from space. Most of the copper comes from relatively few tier 1 ore bodies. The mineral systems of this part of the Central Andes is very well understood, with the Nazca Plate subducting beneath the South American plate. And you can see these deposits lining up, usually at the junction of north-south and northwest trending lineaments. To the north of that map, to the top of the map, is the Vicuña Group. Interestingly, you see Jose Maria, 23 million years, and then followed by Filo del Sol and the other deposits in the Vicuña Group, about 13 to 14 million years. So the same architecture is being reused time and time again. In this you see from the Permian all the way through to the Miocene. So we entered the Xplor program with the Cuneta project, which we felt had the size and scale which could be an interesting target for a BHP. You can see there Cuneta is highlighted in yellow, and it sits in the same geology as the Vicuña Group. So we have Miocene intrusives intruding our Permo-Triassic geology. And it looks the same. You can see it from space. It's a massive alteration system. The big difference you'll see here is that there's no drill tracks all over it and exploration all over it. In fact, it had never been sampled prior to Condor Prospecting's fieldwork this year. So the Xplor project, the Xplor grant enabled us to get on the ground and do some work. We started with a processed satellite imagery, Sentinel-2 and ASTA, and here we can see a comparison between Filo del Sol and Cuneta, and we have the same ingredients. There's a central zone of jarosite, indicative of the alteration of sulfides, and then we have pyrophyllite, indicative of advanced argillic alteration, muscovite, indicative of phyllic. So we were able to get on the ground early this year. We only spent about 5 weeks of fieldwork, and for this project that had never been sampled, we managed to map it with the Anaconda mapping style. Mapping method, we did a 400 by 400 metre geochemical grid all over it. And here's some of the results, some of the more interesting data sets, the hydrothermal alteration, geological mapping. And there's not a lot of copper on surface because it's leached, but you can see it does have a big moly anomaly. And some of these ratios that we like, moly over manganese, copper over zinc. We also did a drone geophysical survey over the central portion of the deposit. And that moly anomaly is really interesting. Here you see in this schematic diagram from Scott Halley, from our 48 elements that we managed to assay for, we could place ourselves very high in the system, we think, and that's supported by geology with the buggy silica there. And that moly anomaly, I've compared it here with Cascabel, a project I worked on in Ecuador, and we can see it's massive. It's only 5 ppm, but so's that moly over Cascabel. So this tells us that we think it's a porphyry, it's not a high sulfidation system, and it has the size potential. So the key takeaways, while you're reading that quote from Dick Silito, some of the things we learned was beyond geology. You can see a picture of our camp there. The camp was set up by the guys while Arturo and I were in Toronto at the Toolkit camp. We come back and we thought, we're surrounded by big boulders. So we did a risk assessment, and we brought that up, and we said to the guys, well, let's move the camp. They thought we were joking. It's about a day's work. But we moved camp. We don't want a boulder rolling on our head in the middle of the night. The other key takeaway is that there's a map that we put together in 2004. It shows the Cuneta project highlighted. It also shows most, if not all, of the other deposits in that part of the belt. And massive thanks to BHP and the Xplor team for giving us the funds to be able to get on the ground and do the first pass of field work here. Going forward, we think we need a MT survey, some geophysics, and then this project needs to be drilled. So once again, thank you very much for listening, and thanks heaps to the BHP.